I sat alone in the corner booth of Rosie's diner, letting the morning chatter wash over me while I nursed my third cup of coffee. To anyone passing by, I was just another face in this sleepy town, forgettable, unassuming, exactly as I wanted it. The bell above the door jangled, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. 5 leather-clad men sauntered in, their boots heavy against the linoleum floor. The usual breakfast crowd quieted, eyes darting nervously to their plates. These weren't just troublemakers, they were members of the Iron Hounds, a gang that had been poisoning our community for months. Their leader, Derek, scanned the room before his gaze landed on me. A smirk crawled across his face as he nudged his companions. I knew that look. I'd seen it too many times before. "Well, what do we have here?" he drawled, approaching my table. "Pretty little thing like you shouldn't be eating alone." I took another sip of coffee, my fingers tightening around the ceramic mug. The warmth against my palms kept me grounded as I looked up at him with practiced indifference. "I prefer my own company," I replied evenly. Derek's smile widened as he placed his palms flat on my table, leaning forward until I could smell the cigarettes on his breath. "Come on now, sweetheart. Don't be like that. We could show you a real good time." The other patrons averted their eyes. No heroes here, just quiet, frightened people who wanted to eat their breakfast in peace. I didn't blame them. "I'm not interested," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I'd been waiting for this moment for weeks, for Derek and his crew to make contact. But he didn't need to know that. Derek's expression hardened. "Not sure you understand how things work around here." The diner's door swung open again, cutting him off mid-sentence. My father's entrance silenced the room. Even at 62, Marcus Reed commanded attention without trying. His military bearing remained intact despite the years, his spine straight as a ruler as he navigated the diner with his white cane sweeping methodically before him. The blindness that claimed his sight 5 years ago had only sharpened his other senses to a frightening degree. "That seat taken?" Dad asked, his unseeing eyes somehow finding me with unsettling accuracy. Derek snorted, looking my father up and down. "Look what we got here, boys, a blind old man." Dad tilted his head slightly, mapping the room with his ears. "And you must be the local disappointment," he replied calmly. "Your mother know you harass women in diners before noon." One of Derek's crew, a heavily tattooed man with a patchy beard, stepped forward. "Watch your mouth, old man." Dad's smile was razor sharp. "I suggest you step back, son, while you still can." There was something in his tone, a quiet certainty that made the biker hesitate. Even Derek seemed to sense that something was off, though his pride wouldn't let him back down now. "You threatening us, Grandpa?" Derek asked, but I caught the flicker of doubt in his eyes. I reached for my phone, sliding it from my pocket. "This has gone on long enough." Derek laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the now silent diner. "What, calling for backup? Daddy's bodyguard coming to save you." I didn't bother responding as I dialed the number, holding his gaze as it rang once, twice, 3 times before connecting. "It's time," I said simply, then ended the call. Derek's friends jeered, but I noticed how his eyes darted toward the windows. He sensed something wasn't right but couldn't place what. "Scared of a phone call," my father chuckled, settling into the booth across from me. "You must not be very important in your little gang." I ordered Dad a coffee when the waitress hesitantly approached. The poor woman's hands trembled as she poured, trying to be invisible. 7 minutes later, the rumble of engines filled the parking lot. Not motorcycles, something heavier, more deliberate. The bikers turned toward the windows just as 3 black SUVs pulled up, forming a semi-circle around the diner's entrance. Derek's swagger faltered as the vehicle's doors opened in perfect synchronization. 8 men and women exited the vehicles, each dressed in tailored black suits that couldn't quite conceal the holsters beneath their jackets. They moved with the fluid precision that only comes from years of tactical training. I recognized each face. These weren't hired guns, but people I'd personally vetted and trained. Through the diner's windows, I watched Derek's confidence crumble, replaced by confusion, then the first flickers of fear. This clearly wasn't what he'd expected when he decided to harass a lone woman in a small-town diner. The bell above the door chimed as Daniel Mercer entered. My second in command surveyed the room before walking directly to my table, completely ignoring the bikers as if they were furniture. "Ms. Reed," he said with a slight nod, "everything all right here?" Derek looked between us, his earlier bravado evaporating. "What the hell is this?" I smiled for the first time that morning, letting the facade slip just enough to see recognition dawn in his eyes, the realization that he'd made a terrible mistake. "They work for me," I stated simply. The other bikers shuffled uncomfortably, sensing the shift in power. One muttered something to Derek, who silenced him with a glare. "You some kind of fed?" Derek demanded, trying to regain control of a situation rapidly spiraling away from him. I stirred my coffee slowly. "Nothing so formal." Dad chuckled beside me, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug. "My daughter runs a private security firm, specializes in difficult problems." Daniel remained standing, his presence a wall between us and the bikers. "Gentlemen, you're currently outnumbered and outgunned. I suggest you finish your breakfast elsewhere." Derek's face flushed crimson, his fists clenched at his sides as he fought the humiliation. "And if we don't?" "Then we have a serious problem," Daniel replied, his voice eerily calm. I leaned forward, folding my hands on the table. "You've been terrorizing innocent people for months now, marking homes with your gang's symbols, threatening businesses for protection money." I paused, letting my words sink in. "Did you really think no one would push back?" Derek's eyes widened fractionally. I'd hit the mark. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "May 12th, the Wilson family on Oak Ridge Drive. June 3rd, Mr. Patel's convenience store. June 27th, the community center on Elm. Should I continue?" One of the younger bikers shifted nervously. "Derek, man, let's just go." Derek shot him a venomous look before turning back to me. "This isn't over," he hissed. I met his gaze steadily. "You're right about that." One by one, they backed away, Derek the last to leave. He paused at the door, his expression promising retribution, before slamming it behind him. The rumble of motorcycles faded as they sped away. The diner's regular noise slowly resumed, though every eye occasionally darted to our table. My phone buzzed with an incoming message. As I read it, the small victory I'd just won faded into perspective. "Not good?" Dad asked, always attuned to the slightest change in my breathing. "It's worse than we thought," I said quietly. "Derek's crew isn't just a local problem." Back in my SUV, with Dad beside me and Daniel driving, I pulled up the new intelligence on my tablet. "The Iron Hounds are just the local chapter," I explained, scrolling through surveillance photos. "They're connected to the Sovereign Brotherhood, a network that spans 5 states. They're not just thugs, they're organized hate." Dad's expression darkened, like the group that bombed that church in Memphis last year. "The same," I confirmed. "They've been expanding aggressively, setting up in small towns where police forces are underfunded and easily intimidated." "Why here?" Daniel asked, eyes on the road. "Strategic location," I replied. "Crossroads town, easy access to interstate highways, minimal law enforcement. Perfect for moving weapons, drugs, and people." The truth was, I'd been tracking the Sovereign Brotherhood for nearly 16 months. Their activities had escalated from vandalism and intimidation to organized violence against minority communities, immigrants, and anyone they deemed outsiders. When I discovered they were establishing a foothold in my hometown, it became personal. "They made it personal," I said aloud. "Now I'm making them my mission." Dad nodded, his unseeing eyes fixed straight ahead. "What's the plan?" "We hit them where it hurts." 2 hours later, I ushered Dad through the nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of town. To casual observers, it looked like just another storage facility. Inside was anything but. As the reinforced doors slid open, the command center hummed with activity. 20 analysts and operatives moved with purpose around the space. Digital screens covered the walls, displaying surveillance feeds, data analytics, and maps pinpointing known Brotherhood activities across the region. "Impressive," Dad murmured, sensing the scale of the operation even without seeing it. His cane tapped lightly on the polished concrete floor as he followed me. "I got tired of waiting for justice," I replied simply. My lead analyst, Sarah, approached us with a tablet in hand. "We've got movement. The local hounds are meeting with regional Brotherhood leadership tonight. Apparently, your little breakfast introduction has them spooked." "Good," I said. "Where's the meeting?" "The last stop bar about 20 miles outside town, Highway 16. She pulled up satellite imagery on the main screen. "They own the property through a shell corporation. It's isolated, one road in and out." I studied the layout, noting the vulnerabilities. "Who's attending?" "Derek and his crew, obviously, but the real prize is Victor Crane." Sarah swiped to a grainy image of a man in his 50s with a military-style crew cut. "Regional commander for the Brotherhood. He rarely shows his face in public, if he's coming personally." "Then they're planning something big," I finished her thought. Daniel joined us, reviewing the intelligence. This could be our chance to cripple their entire operation in one strike. Dad, who had been listening silently, spoke up. "Then we take them down, tonight." I turned to him, surprised. "Dad, this isn't a discussion," he finished firmly. "I spent 30 years in Special Forces, Aliner. I may be blind, but I'm not useless." I knew that tone. There would be no changing his mind. "Fine," I conceded, "but you stay with the command team." His slight smile told me he had no intention of following that directive. The next several hours passed in methodical preparation. My team moved with the practiced efficiency that came from years of working together. Most were former military or law enforcement who'd become disillusioned with the system's failures. They believed in what we were doing, taking action when official channels wouldn't or couldn't. In my office, I holstered my sidearm and secured my tactical vest. 12 vehicles confirmed at the target location, Sarah reported from the doorway. Surveillance drones show approximately 35 individuals inside. I nodded, checking my equipment. Any signs they're expecting trouble? Standard lookouts, nothing unusual. They seem relaxed. Good. I turned to find Dad standing in my doorway, dressed in tactical gear that somehow looked natural on him despite his age. "I told you to stay with the command team," I said, though I'd expected this. He tapped his specialized earpiece. "I'll hear them coming before anyone sees them. Besides, I have unfinished business with these people." My mind flashed to the attack 5 years ago that had cost him his sight. A random mugging that I now suspected had been anything but random. The Brotherhood had been establishing their presence even then, testing boundaries. "Stay close to Daniel," I finally said. He nodded once, a soldier accepting an order. Night had fallen by the time our convoy approached the last stop bar. We parked half a mile away, continuing on foot through the dense woods surrounding the property. The bar's neon sign buzzed in the distance, casting a sickly red glow. Our comms hummed with quiet updates as team members took position. "Perimeter secured," came the first report. "Surveillance confirms all targets present," added another. I raised my hand, signaling the team to hold position. The plan was simple but effective. Surround the building, block all exits, and move in quickly to neutralize resistance before it could organize. Daniel appeared silently at my side, Dad right behind him. "Ready?" I asked. Daniel nodded. "Team 2 is in position at the rear exit. Team 3 has the side entrance covered." I turned to Dad. "Last chance to stay back." He smiled grimly. "Not a chance, kiddo." I took a deep breath, then gave the signal. "Execute." Flashbang grenades detonated simultaneously at all entrances. We moved in through the chaos, my team flowing into the building with practiced precision. "Federal agents, down on the ground." The deception was necessary. Private citizens had no authority to make arrests, but we'd coordinate with actual federal authorities once we had secured the targets. Panicked shouts filled the smoke-heavy air as bikers scrambled in confusion. Some immediately dropped to their knees, hands raised. Others reached for weapons. I moved through the haze, identifying threats with practiced efficiency. A biker lunged at me with a knife. I sidestepped, using his momentum to slam him face first into the bar. Another raised a pool cue. I disarmed him with a quick strike to the wrist before taking him down with a sweep of his legs. Through my earpiece, I heard confirmations as team members secured their zones. East side clear. Back office secured. From the corner of my eye, I saw Dad moving with uncanny awareness through the chaos. His cane now revealed as a tactical weapon as he disabled a biker who made the mistake of underestimating him. "Boss, we've got Crane," Daniel's voice came through my earpiece. "Second floor, attempting to exit through the window." I navigated toward the stairs, taking them two at a time. A door stood between me and the Brotherhood's regional commander. One solid kick splintered the cheap wood. Victor Crane spun around, halfway through the window. His eyes widened in recognition, not of me personally, but of the threat I represented. "It's over, Crane," I said, weapon trained on him. He laughed, a harsh sound. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, little girl. The Sovereign Brotherhood, human trafficking through your southern corridors, weapons distribution through the Midwest, money laundering through your chain of bars and auto shops." I stepped closer. Did I miss anything? His smirk faltered. "Step away from the window," I ordered. For a moment, I thought he might comply. Then his hand moved toward his waistband. I fired once, the bullet tearing through his shoulder. He cried out, collapsing back into the room. "Next one won't be so forgiving," I warned, approaching carefully to secure him. Downstairs, the situation was under control. My team had restrained most of the bikers, the few who had tried to flee already recaptured. Derek sat handcuffed against the wall, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. His gaze burned with hatred as I approached. "You're making a big mistake," he spat. "You have no idea who you're messing with." I crouched before him, lowering my voice. "No, Derek, you made the mistake, coming to my town, threatening my people." Recognition flickered in his eyes, quickly replaced by fear. "Who are you?" "Someone who keeps her promises," I replied, standing as federal agents. Real ones began to enter the building. We had an arrangement. My team did the legwork, provided the evidence, and they made the arrests. Agent Martinez nodded to me as she took custody of Derek. "We'll take it from here. The files you sent were comprehensive." "There's more where that came from," I assured her. "Crane's office upstairs should be particularly interesting." As the agents led the handcuffed men to their vehicles, I found Dad standing by the bar, his cane once again just a cane. "We did good work tonight," he said, somehow sensing my approach. I surveyed the room, now swarming with federal agents collecting evidence. One cell down, dozens to go. Back at headquarters, the mood was celebratory but focused. The raid had yielded even more than we'd hoped. Documents detailing Brotherhood operations across 3 states, financial records revealing their money trails, and communications revealing plans for coordinated attacks against minority communities. "The FBI is calling it the biggest break in domestic terrorism this year," Sarah reported, bringing me a fresh cup of coffee as I sorted through the intelligence. "It's a start," I acknowledged. She hesitated, then handed me a flash drive. "There's something else. We found this in Crane's personal effects. It's encrypted, but our tech team managed to crack it." I plugged it into my computer, scanning the contents. My heart froze as images appeared on screen, surveillance photos of me, of Dad, of our home and the diner, notes on our routines. "They've been watching us," I realized aloud. "For months, according to the timestamps." Sarah's expression was grim. "There's more. Communications between Crane and someone they refer to only as the director. Apparently, your father wasn't randomly attacked 5 years ago. He was targeted because of his military background and connections." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Dad's mugging had been deliberate, a warning to someone he might have known, someone who could have threatened the Brotherhood's expansion. "Does Dad know?" I asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. "Not yet." I closed the files, pocketing the drive. "Let me tell him." I found Dad in the break room, teaching one of our younger team members how to properly field strip a sidearm despite his blindness. "Eleanor," he greeted me, again somehow knowing it was me from just my footsteps. "Come to join the lesson." "I need to speak with you, privately." He must have heard the tension in my voice, because he immediately excused himself, following me to my office. Once the door closed, I told him everything: the surveillance, the connection to his attack. He listened without interruption, his face growing more stoic with each revelation. When I finished, the silence stretched between us. "I suspected as much," he finally said. "The attack was too coordinated, too precise. They knew exactly how to approach me, where to strike." His unseeing eyes seemed to look through me. "This goes deeper than we thought, doesn't it?" I nodded, then caught myself. "Yes, the Brotherhood is just one arm of something much larger." He leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Then we keep going. We dismantle them piece by piece." I looked at the man who had raised me, who had taught me to fight for what was right, especially when, it was difficult. Despite everything they had taken from him, he hadn't broken. He had only grown stronger, more determined. "Yes," I agreed. "We keep going." 3 weeks later, Dad and I sat in our usual booth at Rosie's Diner. The atmosphere had changed since our confrontation with Derek and his crew. People smiled more, talked more freely. The shadow that had hung over the town had lifted, at least temporarily. The local newspaper lay on the table between us, the headline declaring the dismantling of a major criminal network operating throughout the region. No mention of our involvement, of course. That wasn't how we worked. "Pass the sugar, would you?" Dad asked, stirring his coffee. As I pushed the container toward him, a young woman approached our table hesitantly. I recognized her as the waitress who had been working the day of our confrontation with Derek. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "Are you Eleanor Reed?" I tensed slightly, my hand instinctively moving toward my concealed weapon. "Yes." She took a deep breath. "I just wanted to say thank you, my brother." They were pressuring him to join them, threatening our family when he refused, after what happened. She swallowed hard. "He's safe now, we all are." I nodded, unsure how to respond. This was why we did what we did, but gratitude still felt foreign. "You're welcome," I finally said. After she left, Dad chuckled softly. "Still not comfortable with the hero role, I see." "We're not heroes, Dad. We just do what needs to be done." He reached across the table, finding my hand with unerring accuracy. "That's exactly what heroes do, Eleanor." My phone buzzed with an incoming message from Sarah. New intelligence, new targets, new Brotherhood activities emerging in the wake of our strike against them. "Duty calls?" Dad asked. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. "It can wait an hour. I'm having coffee with my father." He smiled, raising his mug in a small toast. "To justice." "To family," I countered, clinking my cup against his. Outside, the world continued turning, unaware of the war being waged in its shadows. The Brotherhood and its mysterious leadership would regroup, adapt, strike back. They thought they could intimidate us, break us, make us cower in fear like everyone else. They forgot who we are. And that will be their downfall. In a sleek office 40 floors above Chicago, a man reviewed the reports of the Brotherhood's collapse in our region. His manicured fingers traced the grainy surveillance photo of me leaving the last stop bar that night. "The Reed woman," he mused to his silent assistant. "She's becoming a problem." The assistant nodded, waiting for instructions. The man, the director, closed the file. "Activate the Meridian Protocol. It's time we dealt with Eleanor Reed once and for all." As he gazed out at the city skyline, a small smile played across his lips. He thought he had the upper hand. He thought I was just another obstacle to remove. He forgot one crucial detail. I've been hunting him too. And I never stop until the job is done.